And today I'd like to welcome George Murray. We've got him presenting today on 4 stages or 4 gears of job transition. And George, do you want to kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and go ahead and present your topic?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for asking me to come back after the last time. I've been in 2 career transitions myself. I thought I was a pretty good student, listening to everybody's great ideas and input my first time around, and said, hey, if I knew this in my first career transition, boy, I probably would be able to cut my time in half. And so wrote a book about it, and it was proven out in my second career transition. So I went from taken 13 months down to 5.5 months from start to finish. So that's my claim to fame. What I do during the day is I run operations, manufacturing, and supply chain for On2 Innovation. We're a capital equipment manufacturer for the semiconductor industry, and we're probably about 550 million. And so that's kind of what I do during the day, and by night I hit up transition groups to see if I can help people.
We're glad to have you. Do you want to go ahead and present the 4 gears of job search?
Sure. Let me see here. So you let me know when you guys can see my screen, because I can't.
We can see it.
All right. So we'll dive in. I've got 152 slides. I hope that I can get it all done in another next 2 hours. That'd be a joke. So I got 15 slides, so we'll go right into it. You guys know me by now, so I don't have to introduce myself. We'll kind of go over the roadmap, and these are the kind of high-level 4 gears. And so I'm not going to go into great detail because in this slide, but I was actually asked by Cat Beyer-Breed to turn around and say, hey, you know what? You need to take your entire book and put it on 1 slide. And that was a feat in itself, because I didn't think that I could do it. But just like the military, you can figure out a way to do it, and I did it. So this is really the meat of the book that I wrote about, as far as the process of going through your career transition. So we're going to go into the next probably 12, 14 slides, and each particular step. If you're either A, new to career transition, or you're in career transition for the last couple of months and you're kind of struggling, hey, what do I need to do? So kind of first gear is really knowing yourself. Part of the process is understanding what just happened, what just transpired, whether that happened a couple of weeks ago, a couple of days ago, a couple of minutes ago, but really trying to process that, because too many times people generally jump into interviewing, networking, etc., and they're not really kind of past what the stage would just happen, what I call kind of the lost stage, right? It's really kind of figuring out, how did this happen to me? More importantly, what would be my story if somebody asked me why I left my last position? And I think right now it's relatively easier to answer that question than it was maybe a couple years ago, when the economy was doing fairly well. You had to come up with a story. Here, you kind of just blame it on COVID and you can move forward, right? For whatever reason, whatever situation. But part of the process is really taking time to reflect and use that as a learning experience. So hopefully you don't jump into your next opportunity and experience that process again in a short period of time. And then really kind of prepare yourself for transition. These are numbers prior to COVID, but any professional, engineering above, it was taking anywhere from 7.5 to 13 months for somebody to transition from one job to the next, even in the good economy. So it's really important for you to prepare for that mentally as well as financially, which I also talk about. Making sure you prepare your finances. One of the things that I didn't do very well in my first 6 months of my first career transition, because, hey, I thought the unemployment rate, 4.5%, I was going to find a job in 3 or 4 months. Well, 3 or 4 months came pretty fast, even though each day seemed like a month. And I wasn't any closer to my next opportunity. And all the while, bills were going in, but nothing was coming, bills were going out, payment terms, but nothing was coming in. So it's really important. I actually, towards probably the 4th or 5th month in my first career transition, I kind of looked at it as a game. How could I negotiate every particular bill or eliminate as many bills as I possibly could? So for example, if you haven't done this in a couple of years, and you probably should put it on your calendar even after you land, is your cable bill. There's so much competition out there that you can renegotiate a cable bill, save yourself $50 and probably get another 100 channels, right? As an example. So that's one of the things that I was able to do, is just kind of, after a slow start, I started to become more aggressive on watching my expenses. And then the final thing is, before you get to transition out of the gear one, is really making sure you scrub your social media. All too often, people have gone to a final round and they've been able to, get the letter of thanks, but no thanks, and really not found out why. But at least some of the feedback that I've gotten from others is that they networked in the organization and they found out that the reason why is that they posted something on either LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter or whatever that didn't really help them in the business for whatever reason, whether it was against their core values, whether it was against kind of their overall view, just didn't resonate. And it basically forced them out of the running for the final round of their opportunity. So I tell people, make sure that whatever you do post and it's out there for all the world to see, it's probably something that your grandmother's going to be very happy to read in the front paper, right? But I can tell you, I've heard where people have gone on to Facebook and looked a year back, and as well as I do, it takes a while to scroll through people's feeds. So they took that opportunity, and for whatever reason, they posted something politically charged or something like that, and it was out there for all the world to see. Your filters were open for everybody to see. It forced them out of the opportunity. So it's important to do all that. And you say, well, George, why 4 gears? Well, I related 4 gears to more like the first time I drove a standard vehicle. Maybe sometimes the first time you got the opportunity was when you got in the military and you were learning to drive one of those Jeeps. Same principle applies. First gear is always the hardest to get into. It's always the hardest to turn around and prevent from stalling, grinding gears, et cetera, et cetera. And that's really a lot like career transition. How do I get this in the first gear and start to move along? So hence 4 gears. We move into second gear. In second gear, one of the things is brand. And if you haven't heard it by now, it's definitely becoming more and more prevalent what your brand is. When I first got out in career transition, I thought products, services, and companies had brands. I didn't realize that individuals had brands, and it's becoming more and more prevalent. And wherever you show up and however you show up is your brand. So you need to make sure it's pretty consistent, and it's the brand that you expect to project, no matter if you're in a networking meeting, an interview, or out on the street talking to people. You want to make sure that you are pretty consistent in your brand. And people come to you for whatever particular unique skill or need that your requirement that you have. Again, I always tell people, be prepared. This is well beyond the whole Boy Scout motto, right? But part of the process before you even get to a point of interviewing and networking is making sure you do homework the night before, whether it's on the company that you're going to interview with or the person that you're going to network with, because it's really out of respect. They're giving you time. It's important for you to show general interest. And by doing that is doing homework on the night before to find out, hey, who am I going to network with tomorrow? Maybe it's Mike, maybe it's Alan. What's their background like? I'm going to go on LinkedIn. I'm going to find something that I can truly connect with in the first few minutes. For example, Mike, how do you know Alan? Right? And that's a common connection. People want to be, associated. And so how do you get that connection? You do that by doing homework and then showing up prepared and then being genuinely interested in the people that you're talking to. Again, one of the things that I'm passionate about is knowing your value proposition. And this is much different than your elevator pitch. I mean, for me, elevator pitches, I say are all 2016 or beyond. It's an old, it's an old analogy. We live in a very short attention span society. So the elevator pitches don't actually last a minute. They're more than that. They sound pretty much similar to anybody else that's in your industry. And it doesn't really truly take into account the listener that you're talking to. So it's important for you to do that homework and create a value proposition that says, hey, I may know somebody, or I may know an opportunity within my organization or my company that resonates with your skill and your value. So, for example, the standard elevator pitch, at least from a chief operating officer perspective, has always been, I'm an executive in operations that has 20 years experience with an MBA. Want. You sound like Charlie Brown's teacher first. Second of all, it's all monotone, so it doesn't have any passion. And so what the difference is that it lasts probably a couple of minutes, and we live in an attention deficit disorder society. So you got 30 seconds to tell me what makes you unique and different in your industry. That's really what it is. That's the impactful. I kind of relate it to, you give them the taste of the cake, but you don't give them the entire ingredient. So they have to call you back to find the ingredients, right? Same thing with a value proposition. And things that I use is when they say, tell me about yourself, my response is either A, I'm an executive that takes flat to declining companies. I turn them around the top and the bottom line while injecting a more equally accountable work culture. Do you know anybody that needs somebody like that? That's like 24 seconds. That's the company's top line, bottom line, and culture. And I can tell you, interviewing for the last 10 years, that's probably the 3 biggest problems that any company has, right? And then they say, hey, yeah, I do know somebody that is struggling with their top line. Tell me more. Boom, you've zeroed right in on it. It's something that they're interested in, they're valued, they have a connection. And then, of course, what you want to do is you want to drive LinkedIn traffic, because really that's where recruiters are going to find you. That's where potential employers are going to find you. You want to make sure that your brand and the traffic all align. So there's 2 great classes I tell people that are best in out there, and it's all through hire.org. So if you've been have collected unemployment, or will be collecting unemployment, you can sign up for hire.org. It's a state funded program that helps you, with education, et cetera, to help you get a job faster. And there's 2 classes. One, it's branding, Kathleen Crandall, and Ann Pryor with LinkedIn. 2 great classes. If you paid separately, you're talking about maybe $1,500 to $2,000 each for these classes. And hire.org will pay for you. So the benefit is A, you get paid, they pay it for you, and B, you get a clear understanding of your brand, and you get your LinkedIn profile really optimized to really generate the traffic to your LinkedIn profile. And in the end, it's all about you. So it's really that you have to understand that, I guess, especially with professionals, managers, or whatever, you may have been in a position for the last 4 or 5 years, you've delegated a lot of work, right? So one thing that you have to realize is that you cannot delegate career transition. It's heavy lifting. It's a lot of work. It's going to be the toughest job that you've had in quite some time. Excuse me. If you haven't been looking for a job, because the fact is it's all about what you can and are able to do. The more you're able to network, the more you're able to network with the right people, the higher success rate, the quicker that you'll land. So we're motoring along, we're picking up pace, we're working into gear 3. And part of gear 3 is what people tend to realize is that maybe too little late in career transition is that it's frustrating. You're probably more on the low side of the roller coaster ride at times than you are at the really top end, really ready to take that next opportunity. But what I tell people is you have to control what you can control. And this is one of the things I looked in the mirror 3 months into my first career transition. I said, who's going to hire me, right? I was sitting at on a 6'3" frame and weighing the heaviest I'd ever been, 270 pounds, and you guys can do the math that I was a little chunky. And so I said, I'm going to turn around and start a weight loss program. I'm going to get out there and walk. I'm not going to run because I'd have a heart attack. But the point was I was focusing on the things that were going to help me look and feel better. And that would come across in confidence. And in about 7 months, I was able to drop 40 pounds. It made me feel better, look better, and I came across with more confidence. So focus on the things you can control. Also, make sure that anytime that you show up, you show to a meeting like this, you want to make sure that you have energy, enthusiasm, and positive attitude. If you don't have that, then it's probably best that you take that time off, you call in sick, just like you would call in to work, because again, it reflects your brand. So you want to make sure that you come off of your best self all the time. I think many people actually want to sit down at the table and talk to an Eeyore, right? Eeyore is the, oh, woe is me. I've been out 13 months, don't know what to do, haven't done anything, haven't changed anything up, haven't tried anything new, all those things. Don't be that person. And then again, also, even in your Zoom calls, you want to make sure that you come off and you look well, you dress well, your background's inviting and it's not a distraction. So put away your 80s posters, your grandmother's curtains, and etc. Because again, all that gives the opportunity for the listener or the viewer to make assumptions. And a lot of times they're wrong assumptions. Oh God, you know, that guy's background, it's all messy. Wow, he must be a real, you can fill in the blank, right? So you want to eliminate those perceptions as much as possible. Make sure that your video camera is at least somewhat eye level and it's not like this, that you're looking up or you're looking down, right? Because that all gives weight to perception. So you want to make sure that you're talking to the camera. I always tell people, I know it's hard to actually look, so just place a little family picture there or your wife or your significant other there, right? Because then it seems like, and then you can keep your eyes on that and say, hey, you know, how are you guys doing today? How can I help you? You know, those are little things that I have found to be more successful, and it really helps with your brand and how you're coming off. So you're not always looking down like this. You're not always looking at your phone. And then, of course, you want to be able to create a structured life or a structured day in your life. And I call it the day in your life. So if you left your work for whatever reason, laid off, RIF, they use all kinds of terminology, but you're just not there, you have no structure. And it's important for you to create that structure as soon as possible. And so my point is that there's certain things that you do on a daily basis, certain things you do on a weekly basis and a monthly basis that help you progress through your career transition. You've got to create that structure. And part of that structure is evaluating that every 3 to 4 weeks so that you say, it's not working and it's not progressing. There's something that I have to change. And I would say, if you learn anything in the book or today, there's 3 things that you should evaluate every 3 to 4 weeks. If you're not progressing, you're not getting the interviews, you're not getting the right networking connections, there's 3 things to evaluate. Your energy, your enthusiasm, and positive attitude, that's the first of 3. The second is your day in the life. And the third is your personal board of advisors, what we'll talk about later. But these are 3 to 5 people that have your general benefit and your interests at heart, and they're willing to help you and listen to you and also hold you accountable to say, George, stop crying and get on the bike. And then also making sure that, you know, you're introducing yourself as your best. And this is kind of what I called the value proposition. I had templates for everything. I created them over the weekend. It was part of my weekend work duties, right? I'm going to develop 3 or 4 introductions because, again, you only have 300 characters in LinkedIn to go out direct and introduce yourself. And by the way, don't just hit connect, because don't be that person. Because again, I have 172 requests to connect in my inbox, and I personally will not connect with anybody unless they just take a few minutes to at least introduce themselves. To me, if you're just going to hit connect, chances are I'm not connecting with you. So it's important for you to at least put a real brief introduction that says who you are, why are you connecting with me today, and possibly, can we meet? Can we connect? Also responding. So when somebody introduces you to, so like, for example, Mike would introduce me to Alan, it's my responsibility that I've got a timeline, I got a ticker, because if I don't respond to say, thank you, Mike, for introducing me to Alan, then it's Mike's brand that I'm hurting. I'm not only hurting my brand, but I'm hurting Mike's brand, right? So it's important for me within 24 to 36 hours, don't do it 2 minutes after, but a little bit of time that says, Mike, I really appreciate the introduction. Alan, it's great to meet you virtually, LinkedIn wise, whatever. Is there a way that we can schedule some time in the next 2 weeks? But all these things were templates, and I think this will help you progress so that you can just cut and paste and be very quick and efficient in this process. As I said, I took my military structure and cadence to really the nth degree when I created this whole plan in my book and my workshop. So we're moving along and we're picking up pace. And part of that process is really scheduling your day. So for me, this was kind of my day. In the morning, I did certain things in the morning to get me going, to motivate me, because again, you are your worst career coach. You're always second guessing yourself. So it's important for you to make sure that you've got a structured day. I get up, I'm going to do some exercise, whether it's jogging, walking, swimming, whatever the case may be. Meditation, clear out that garbage. And I can tell people YouTube was the best free coach out there. You can do, I've learned how to write a book. I've learned how to identify an editor, how to publish, all kinds of things just by going on YouTube and searching. Search for meditation. I want to meditate for energy or whatever. Morning affirmations. I want to talk about how I can be my best self. Boom, boom, boom. But that was part of my process. And during the day, I had work hours. I did so many contacts. I had so many cold calls, so many reach outs. And then at the end of the day, guess what? You're the janitor. You got to clean it all up, set it up for tomorrow. That's why I say career transition is a lot of work. Weekly, like I said, part of the process for me was every couple of weeks I would do that stop, start, continue, evaluate what I was doing, stop the things that didn't add any value, and maybe just kind of brainstorm things that would actually help me, like a cold call. I cold called CEOs for a couple of weeks, and ironically enough, I had a high percentage of people that responded because my message was clear and concise. Right? No one wants to listen to somebody that goes on and on for 3 or 4 minutes on a phone screen, or excuse me, on a voicemail. Job trackers, making sure that you have alerts and always responding. And basically, I spent less than 30 minutes a day submitting resumes. If you're spending more than that, you're wasting time, because 1% chance that you're actually going to get called by that. But you at least got to take the attempt. And it was 30 minutes. I had job alerts that sent to me, and they're all within 24 hours of release. Anything that's more than a week, you're probably going to have a high probability of not even coming into the top 10 because they've already started screening people. So it's timely to that. Letters, there's all kinds of opportunities, but in the end, it's a lot of work. And then on a monthly basis, I looked at how do I keep top of mind? Because you're going to network with a lot of people. You're going to see somebody and you're going to talk to them, and then 6 weeks go by. Life happens. It's not that they want to forget you, unless you sound like an Eeyore, but you want to make sure that you're always on top of mind. So what I did was I sent updates every 5 to 6 weeks. Said, hey, listen, here's what I've been doing, a couple of lines, and here's what I'm looking for, a couple of lines. Don't write a book because no one wants to read a book. I was told that about a little over a year and a half ago, that the human has an attention span of 5 seconds, because a lot of these phones, right? They're distractors. Do you know that the goldfish has 6 seconds? So we have less of an attention span of the goldfish that may be in your bowl right now. So it's important for you to make sure that you keep constant updates. You're coming off, you've got your value proposition clearly defined. And finally, you identify those personal board advisors, 3 to 5 people that are going to help you. They're going to listen to you. They're going to listen to your woes, but then they're going to get to a point where, like, you know what, George, you've been on this oh, poor, pitiful me scenario for 3 weeks now. It's time to man up and get out there and, move forward. And then as people realize I love muscle cars, My favorite car is a 69 Trans Am. It's the first year it came out. That's why I reference this car, is because at a 455 engine with a 400 turbo transmission, and I can go into great detail of this, but this is my dream car. But the point is that those cars didn't have auto synchronization. So a lot of times you had to double clutch in order to get the engine and the tires to sync up. And that's a lot like career transition. You're motoring along, you start to pick up pace, you're getting in interviews, and guess what? You slow down on networking. Well, that's not really good. I always tell people, network until a week after you've landed your next role. Why I say week after? Because guess what? You might hire into this role that they told you about, but the job's this job. And that's a job you definitely don't want. And guess what? You're back at it again. So it's important for you to do that. And double clutch, to me, it's really just kind of a timeout and evaluate. That's back to that every 3 to 4 weeks. When am I going to stop, start, and continue? How am I going to keep top of mind? Sending out those letters, those updates. And then also trying something new, right? Cold call. Send letters to people who've recently got promoted on LinkedIn. Find out their company's address, send them a brief letter, hand sign it, hand address it, send it to them. That's how I started my networking in my first career transition. I called it the 10, 10, and 10 process. Part of it was sending 10 letters or emails a day. I did it for 10 weeks. You do the math, 5 times 10 weeks, boom, 500 people. Send letters, 500 people. And out of those, 80% responded back saying, hey, I would love to meet with you, see how I can help you. It was something different because A, they only got bills and spam. They actually got a letter. So old school stuff still works as long as it's clear and concise. And you try something new. If it doesn't work after a while, stop it and do something else. Then you're progressing, you're building up momentum. And I said, this is my personal board of advisors, right? These people were phenomenal. Some people I talk to on a daily basis. Is my screen different than yours? I've gone through this whole presentation.
No, we see 4th gear.
Okay, good. So Ann Pryor, as everybody knows, is literally in the top 10 globally as a LinkedIn expert. And she just found 10 minutes every couple of months to give me her advice and help out. Tremendous. Lisa Fraga was the next one, who was my friend. I just met through career transition. She was like the sister that I had who passed away. She literally held me accountable. She basically told me to suck it up. I mean, she was really raw. New England raw, right? Really abrasive. Shut up, George, get it done, do this, do that. But I needed that. Alan McClellan was the CEO, the next guy that's in the middle. He was the CEO I reached out and cold called. And to this day, he's a really close friend. Now, this is a guy that runs $1 billion company, and he actually gave me an opportunity to get to know him. Jenny Jeffords, and I call her my energy coach. I met her early on in my first career transition. She just had this wonderful knack that you wanted to be a part of her network. And when she talked, she just inspired me to get better. And then Ryan Carlson was my financial advisor. But this was my group. Who's your group? You Uber networkers, like we talked about, Alan Hill, Mr. Uber networker. These guys and these gals, both, are highly connected and highly willing to help people land their next roles. They just, what we call, excuse me, are givers and sharers. They always are willing to help. And those are the people that you want to be a part of your team. Reach out to those people often. They have great advice and they're willing to help you. And that, I won't go into great detail, but at interviewing processes, you've got to create a wow at every step in order to be competitive. Right now, it's more competitive than it ever has before because companies have realized that I can actually get a lot of these opportunities and these resources remote. Before, they never considered that. So if you're a software engineer, you're not only competing now locally, but you may be competing internationally or globally. And they may find that the ideal person is in Calgary, or Canada, and not in Minneapolis. So you got to be able to create the wow at every step. And then remember, energy, enthusiasm, positive attitude. 3 takeaways from today that you need to look at every couple of weeks. If something's not working, these are the things to look for. And that said, the next thing is, let me see, I move here. Day in the life. If something's not working, you have to evaluate what you're doing daily, weekly, and monthly and make adjustments and changes. And then finally, maybe you need to vote somebody off your personal board of advisors because they're just not there helping you. They're not listening to you, and they're not giving you the best direction. And then make sure you pay it forward when you land, and you will land. Some faster than others, some later than others, but we will all land. Just make sure you take that learning and you help people. And then as I was talking at the beginning, you know, I started a workshop, started in January, filled it 50%. Second month was February, we filled it fully. And the process is really 2.5 hours. We go into greater detail. We help develop your value proposition. We also help develop your networking roadmap, also developing your 90-day plan for your potential employers. And we also set you on the right path for success. And you also get an hour with me one-on-one, and you'll get the book signed as well. Great. And not only that, but I was able, as I was talking, Minneapolis Community College will pick me up. So I'll be available in April and May and the fall semesters for the college. Questions? You can get the book if you just want the book. Today we're giving 15% off. You go to Kirkhouse Publishing, select it, and then when you hit the checkout, it'll ask you for the code. Use the code. Back to you, Al.